Welcome to this session around kickstarting your solution development with Microsoft 365 patterns and practices, aka PnP. So my name is Esa Juvonen. I'm a principal program manager from the OneDrive SharePoint engineering team. And in this session, we're going to talk about all of the goodies and components and guidance and assets and all of that stuff, which we have already for our Microsoft 365 community. So even though I'm from the OneDrive SharePoint community, OneDrive SharePoint engineering side, it doesn't mean that this would be only about SharePoint and OneDrive, because we're targeting the other areas as well. So we're really kind of targeting to build a Microsoft 365 development community, helping you to be more successful within your solution and within your projects. Now, if we think about the 2020 year, it's been slightly interesting, or let's say a different comparing to the previous years. And I think everybody have been learning the different ways of working. So I'm delivering this session or this recording also from home because, well, everybody's working from home. And the situation was quite different before the 2020. So I still remember when I started in Microsoft back in 2006, many months ago, I worked together with a team. We actually spent time together. We stayed in the same room, and we were solving things and trying to figure out how things are actually working. Now with 2020 and the way we work from home, we actually need to take more advantage of these technical tools and community assets, because that's the way we communicate. That's how we get actually support for the work what we do together. And that's really where we want to have and where we want to address the assets and where we want to help you to be successful around the PnP assets. So as an example, this is a picture from the pretty recent, comparing to when we're recording this, pretty recent community call, where we actually had 280 people joining that, but roughly 50 people enabled the get together mode in Microsoft Teams, just feeling to be more present. So we're really trying to embrace this model where it's not just about the people in social media and sharing, let's say, the latest technology. It is actually about the people behind of those names and behind of those tags, which we're seeing in Microsoft Teams. And that's really where we want to be with Microsoft 365 PnP. So really building that community, making sure that we provide help for you, because that's the whole point why the community exists. Which, by the way, if we're missing something, please do let us know, and please let us know how we can improve our assets and guidance. Now, if we think about the Microsoft 365 development community and how we've been evolving throughout the years, we already have more than 500 samples available helping you to get started on Microsoft 365 development. And these samples vary from the Microsoft Teams and bot development and tab development or personal application development to the SharePoint framework development, building a web parts or an extensions in the Microsoft 365 platform. We already have more than 1,470 individual contributors. I think we're hitting, and this is obviously moving targets, so the numbers are growing all the time. And the model itself, where we engage together with MVPs and work together with community, was supported internally in Microsoft as a reference solution and reference community model, based on the learnings and based on the success what we've been having. So really engaging together with MVPs and building that community where we help others who are not MVPs, because obviously it's for everybody in the community. We also have more than 80,000 visitors in our GitHub repositories within the past 2 weeks. So that's also a growing number, which is really cool. And our open source components are being used more than 63,000 tenants within every single month. And obviously these numbers are growing all the time, which is really cool. And we also have more than 3.1 million YouTube watch time minutes within the last 365 days, which is obviously massive. And it's great to see that people are finding the guidance videos in both of the YouTube channels, which we are providing the videos from. Now, if you're wondering where do I actually get access on all of this great stuff which is available, and clearly other people are interested and excited what's available, that's a really easy location for our community assets. So we have an AKMS M365 PnP address, where you'll find access to all of the community calls, what we're executing with Microsoft 365 groups and Microsoft 365 programs and services. And there's the guidance, there's the components and tools, and all of the additional assets from this one location. So what we wanted to do with this one page is rather than kind of a differentiating, are you a craft developer, a Microsoft Teams developer, or a SharePoint developer, or a Office admin developer, put everybody in one location. Because if you're building for Microsoft Teams, you're using Microsoft Craft behind the scenes. If you're building for SharePoint Framework, you're using Microsoft Craft behind the scenes. So it's all about using the same tooling, same technologies, same guidance across everybody, across the whole platform of Microsoft 365. Now, if we think about our guidance and assets, what we're actually providing, we're kind of dividing this in 3 different sections. And we've been doing this for quite a few years already in the past as well. So we talk about learning, we talk about reusing, and we talk about sharing. So learning is really around learning how to do development, learning the guidance, getting access to documentation, and having a good documentation available and good samples available. The reusing is really providing reusable components and assets which you can use in your project. So you can actually be more productive and concentrate or maybe more on the business logic rather than the basics of the technical implementation. And then the share is really that we want to facilitate and help people to also share their learnings between others. So if you already are using something and you want to share your learnings more efficiently for other people, that's why the program also exists. So really making sure that everybody can find what's usable for them. Now, let's concentrate all of these 3 pieces one by one and see what actually we have for all of them. So first of all, let's concentrate on learn. And the classic slide, which we always used in the community course as well, is that we're calling out all of the different main assets where you can find relevant information for you to learn from, which is obviously our YouTube channel. Slightly confusing maybe due to historical reasons. There's 2 different YouTube channels. There's the Microsoft 365 Developer Videos YouTube channel, where we have a lot of videos available related on different technologies. And then we have the Microsoft 365 SharePoint Community videos, where we have more videos from MVPs and the community members as well. I wouldn't consider them as competing ones, but slightly confusing maybe that there's 2 of them. But the community video channel also has non-development videos. So that might be the differentiator on those 2. Now, on the open source side, we do have multiple different open source and GitHub repositories where you can get involved. So you can share your samples and get involved in the projects and improve our components and reusable components. And all of those can be found either from github.com/MicrosoftCraft, github.com/OfficeDev, PnP, or SharePoint, slightly again, depending on which area we are focusing. Now, when you are developing something, you should always first have a look on if there's an existing sample. And that's actually quite difficult if you have to go through thousands and thousands of GitHub repositories and use Google or Bing on finding, is there a sample available? So for addressing this, we actually have created already 4 different sample galleries. And we'll have a quick look on this in a second, slightly later on the presentation. But we have the SharePoint Framework sample gallery, we have the Teams samples gallery, SPFX extension sample gallery, and list formatting sample gallery, which is also, by the way, for Microsoft lists, not only for SharePoint as well. And then if you're wondering, and so many URLs, this is so difficult, I can't remember all of this. That's why we have the one address, AKMS M365 PnP, from where you can find all of the different assets which are available for you. Now, just to clarify what we have available related on the sample galleries, let's actually have a look on that one briefly in a quick demo. So walking through the different sample galleries. So in this demo, we'll have a look on the different sample galleries which are available for you to take advantage. And one of the reason why these do exist, as mentioned, is that there's so many samples available in GitHub across multiple different GitHub organizations, and having a one location per sample type does make sense for you to actually find what's available in a GitHub rather than going through the GitHub organizations and trying to find what's available. So as an example, we have the AKMS Teams samples, which will redirect you to the Teams sample gallery, where you can actually go and have a look on the samples targeted for Microsoft Teams based on a feature, based on a type, based on a client-side code, and you can filter down on the different options which are available. And this is super, super helpful, definitely for you to find those reference samples when you're targeting Microsoft Teams. For example, on the server-side language, is it Python, is it JavaScript, is it Power Automate, or by an origin as well. So really, really cool capabilities on finding what's relevant for you in the Microsoft Teams area. And obviously, if you're looking into then Taking advantage of the sample, all of these are then redirecting to the actual source of the sample solution. So as an example, if we click there, we'll actually get to the associated insights, the Microsoft Teams app template, and from here you can actually get to the GitHub. So we're trying to make it just easier to find all of the samples available across Microsoft and community efforts. The same applies actually for SharePoint frameworks. So SharePoint framework web parts, there's a massive amount of different web parts. This is a huge list of different samples which are available, and then you can actually find what's relevant for you based on, let's say, based on SPFX version or a compatibility or a framework. You're looking into doing something in TypeScript or you're looking into doing something in React, you can filter down the sample and then find what's relevant for you. And again, clicking the sample, you will be redirected to the original sample and you can actually adapt that based on your business requirements. Same applies also for extensions, so plenty of SharePoint framework extensions are available, and also for the list formatting samples. Now, a lot of samples available, we do know this, and it might be overwhelming actually even to find what's relevant for you. So in the future, we are looking into combining all of these sample galleries to a single Microsoft 365 sample gallery, which we're working already together with Microsoft Teams organizations. So we're really trying to make it as simple as possible for you to find what's relevant for you, so you can actually concentrate on your business logic and have a reference sample available, which you can take advantage, which has been built by the community or by Microsoft. Hopefully you find that useful. We are working on actually having a one consolidated gallery in the future. So we're already working with multiple organizations inside of the Microsoft to combine to have a one single portal where you can actually go and find what's relevant for you. We didn't quite have it available for this recording, but it's coming and it will be available later on, depending on when you're watching the video. Now, let's move into the reuse section. We had to learn, reuse, and share. And in the reuse, we typically kind of cover different assets and reusable components and reusable projects which are available for you to take advantage. Now, we'll start by having a quick look on the SharePoint lookbook, where you can actually go and provision sample content, demo sites to any tenant within the world for free. And these are actually really cool designs, which we are using also in the different keynotes in a different presentation, where our, let's say, our CVPs are actually doing live demos. So these designs themselves are available for you to take advantage as well. So let's have a look on the SharePoint lookbook, how it actually looks like in practice and what's available for you to take advantage. So in this demo, we'll have a look on the latest around the SharePoint lookbook. And if you're targeting on Microsoft 365 and you're building communicational platforms, you should be definitely aware of the SharePoint lookbook, because it gives you awesome samples and starting points for designing your corporate communicational sites and portals, which can be also embedded directly in the Microsoft Teams. So don't get fooled on the portals being outdated, not at all. We also have really cool setup of solutions available here, which are for the Microsoft Learning Pathways and a new employee onboarding hub as an example, and school targeted templates and all of that. Now, what's really cool around the lookbook on Microsoft.com is that some of these templates actually will be natively available as a first-party experience in SharePoint Online. So based on the learnings around the lookbook, we're now introducing them as a first-party template, and then we'll introduce new templates for testing in the lookbook Microsoft.com site. So based on your input, we're then adapting those based on in the product. We also are actually moving into this model in the lookbook site where we actually do not require tenant administration permissions. So you can actually, for some of the templates, the permissions required are site owner. So you as a normal end user, you can actually apply the template to your existing communication site, which were not possible in the past because the requirement was that you're a tenant administrator. Now, really cool stuff, and obviously clicking the button Add to your tenant, you can actually start the provisioning process, and then that will add the template to your actual tenant. Now, Super important thing also to realize with Lookbook, this is completely open source. So the whole solution, the templates, assets, and everything else is actually open source. The actual implementation of the Lookbook sign is available in the GitHub. So you can actually take advantage of that one as a really cool multi-tenant Azure AD application, which is taking advantage of provisioning operations, which, by the way, supports Microsoft Teams creations as well. Or the actual templates. Those templates are also open source. So if you're looking into having reusing of some of the assets and images or the templates for your usage, everything is open sourced and available in a GitHub for you to take advantage. So don't miss out this opportunity, because it is a great set of designs provided by our design organization, which you can then take into use within your implementations as well. But that's all we're going to do with this demo related on SharePoint Lookbook. Now, we are in the reuse section of the presentation, so we'll jump between the different components and all of that, and there's so many of them, but one of the really widely used components for sure is the Yo Teams and Yeoman Teams generator, which actually helps you to build Microsoft Teams solution. So one thing what I want to be clear before we go to the demo, this is not a competing solution with anything what we are providing from the Microsoft Teams from Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio IDE perspective. They're actually complementary solutions. They have a different technology backend, and you can actually use them cross, which is a super cool thing as well. And we're going to touch that in the video as well. So in this demo, we'll have a look on the Yo Teams with SharePoint frameworks, a nice integration of implementing everything in TypeScript, and then also implementing a server-side in TypeScript or in Node.js in this case, well, using TypeScript to serve the bot execution. So obviously you can use multiple different technologies of implementing your bot framework, but Yo Teams is a great way of actually implementing these things for sure, and certainly a valid option in the future as well. Now, in here, you can actually see the SharePoint framework-based personal application in Microsoft Teams, which is certainly probably the easiest way to implement UX layer extensibility in Microsoft Teams, especially if you need to integrate to your LOB systems or integrate to your existing systems using a client-side technology, automatic hosting, and all of that stuff, which is pretty cool. And you have all of the power of and goodies of the personal applications without worrying where the UX layer is being hosted. Of course, if you implement a bot framework solution, you will need to host the bot somewhere, and that would be in an Azure in this case. Now, how would we actually integrate SharePoint framework together with your team? So what would be the scenario? Well, one way of doing this, obviously, is that in real world, quite often when we build this solution, we want to build multiple different or take advantage of multiple different Teams extensibility points. So you can absolutely implement your tabs, your personal application, but you can actually also integrate into task modules. You can integrate on messaging extensions. You can have webhooks and all of that. So all of those server-side elements could be then implemented using Yo Teams or alternative technologies which are targeted for Microsoft Teams. So in this case, we have a relatively simple demo using a task module which has been implemented using a SharePoint framework. And then when we select an individual lead, for example, the game controller 3300 from here, we actually execute the bot which is hosted in behind of the scenes. What's really cool around the Yo Teams is that it really makes your implementation super easy as well. So right now in this case, I'm actually running the bot directly locally, and we can see those events which were just happening as we were testing out. So we can actually easily do debugging. We can do and analyze the code before we implement that and put it in hosting in Azure side. And we're using ngrok behind of the scenes, and it's super easy to actually do. So the packaging engine and everything else automates those URLs and makes the implementation as easy as possible. Now, the Yo Teams also has awesome set of additional capabilities. So when we execute and when we have it installed, we can simply implement multiple different Microsoft Teams extensibility points. So we can choose which manifest version will be targeted, or else that is evolving in every single version. But we can then implement multiple different extensibilities. So if we do the tab with SPFX, we can do a bot, outgoing webhook, connector, and localization support, or those, and then move forward, and then it actually creates the solution. You can start easily testing things. Now, What about Microsoft Yo Teams and then all of the Microsoft Teams extensibility for Visual Studio Code, which is getting released as well? Now, these are not exclusive and they're not competing. The key point here to understand is that you can actually take advantage of both worlds. So basically, in the Microsoft Teams extensibility in Visual Studio Code, we still can absolutely take advantage of the validation processes. For example, for the bot, which we're just seeing, we can validate that one and get some results. And as expected, because our version is 0.11001, it's not actually ready to go live and submitted to the store. But we can certainly take advantage of all of these capabilities for those Yo Team solutions as well, which is really, really cool. So again, which technology you use to build your Microsoft Teams extensibility, you can still take advantage of the Visual Studio Code tooling and Visual Studio IDE extension as well for validation, for publishing, and making it easy to get your solutions available in the tenant app catalog. Like I said, a lot of components, a lot of reusable assets, and we're only going to touch a few of these things. So let's talk about the cross-platform CLI tool for Microsoft 365 management. This was actually also known as Office 365 CLI, but with our marketing discussions with our marketing, we wanted to align from a naming perspective. And the cross-platform CLI tool for Microsoft 365 enables you to do configuration and automation in the Microsoft 365 tenant level across the different services and different applications, using this tool in any operating system. So you can use it in Linux, you can use it in Windows, or in an Apple operating system, or in a Cloud Shell where it's downloaded or it's available automatically. So really cool stuff. Let's have a quick demo on this one as well. So in this video, we'll have a look on what the CLI for Microsoft 365 is all about. And it was also known Office 365 CLI in the past, but the branding has been aligned. And it's really around the fact that you can actually use the same command line tooling in any operating system, including Azure Cloud Shell. So it's implemented in a way that you can access that using Linux, you can use it in iOS, I can use it in any, obviously in Windows as well. And it's targeted for any person to actually manage, report, create, or upgrade solutions and automate operations. So in this case, we were, for example, configuring the CDN settings for the tenant in the Microsoft 365. Also has capabilities for Microsoft Teams and Flow, and additional capabilities being added almost on every single week. So there's a really vibrant open source community, which is all the time adding additional capabilities, additional functions. It also has an awesome SharePoint framework project upgrade operations, which helps on upgrading your projects to the latest version. And it also supports creating scripts, so you can automate operations using the Office 365 CLI. So check it out, AKMS CLI M365. Moving along with reusable assets and components, we also have the PnP Core SDK. This is a relatively new component, which really comes from a perspective where we want to help people to use Microsoft Graph APIs as much as possible. So you might know that if you're targeting SharePoint platform, the SharePoint has this kind of a historical nuances, and so that it has multiple different old APIs, not just Microsoft Graph, because it has existed for quite a long time. And we really want to make sure that people always use the Microsoft Graph API because it is the most modern and technically advanced API. But every now and then you need to fall back on the classic API endpoints. And with the PnP Core SDK, we're trying to make this as easily available as possible. So behind of the scenes, it's then using the Graph API and Graph automation. But if the Microsoft Graph is missing one property or a method, it automatically falls back on the old APIs. So you as a developer, you don't need to worry about, am I hitting the Graph API or am I hitting the REST API or maybe I see some API in SharePoint. It all happens magically behind of the scenes, and abstraction, it kind of erases the abstraction slightly, so you don't have to worry about where to get the information which is relevant for you. So let's have a look on the new PnP Core SDK and what this project is all about and why does it actually exist. And this is something which we've been pretty recently started building. It is a modern open source .NET library to work with Microsoft 365. And it's really intended to abstract the REST API surface. So you don't have to worry about is the API supported in Microsoft Graph or in a SharePoint REST. And this library will basically abstract that usage and it will by default obviously use always Microsoft Graph, but then it will fall back on the SharePoint REST APIs if the existing or requested API is not available. Now, why would you actually use it? Well, it's targeted for .NET. It is a modern .NET standard library targeted for .NET 5 when the .NET 5 is actually being shipped. So it's up to date on the technology implementation perspective using the dependency injection. It also has a key focus on quality. So already at this point, 80% of this, it has the 80% of test coverage, and all of the new capabilities are being super closely tested to ensure that it actually works without any issues. Now, let's have a quick look how it actually works in practice. And this is going to be pretty fast, but basically it is using the .NET standard dependency injection model. It has the Ling object Ling support. You can get data from SharePoint and Teams, which are the primary endpoints and primary access points. And behind of the scenes, the requests are then being translated to the Microsoft Graph. And if needed, fall back on the SharePoint REST side, on the SharePoint side, because on Teams side, everything is in Microsoft Graph. It has the CRUD operation at delete and patch support as well, so you're able to queue up on things. It has the taxonomy support and the taxonomy graph behind of the scenes, so you can easily access the information with the Fluent API. Currently, it's still in preview, but it's intended to actually go live as a version 1.0 in the December 2020. But please do get involved. We would love to have more community members involved in here. Behind of the scenes, we're working together with Microsoft Graph team to make sure that it's working aligned together with Microsoft Graph objectives, and we are aligned from a Microsoft perspective. But please do get involved, AKMS PnP Core SDK. And now we only had a look on quickly 5 items at this point. We'll have one more demo coming up in a second as well, but I just wanted to pinpoint that there's so many different assets and so many different reusable components available across the different stack. And there's an automation scenarios, there's this SharePoint, so there's the modern search capabilities. There is a SharePoint Starter Kit v2, which by the way works in a Microsoft Teams as well. It has a lot of Microsoft Teams tabs and personal application implementations in it. We have the PnPjs Core, which is super widely used across the world. We have the PnP PowerShell. And for all of these projects, there is an active MVP team, which is leading the projects, and they would be more than thrilled to actually get you involved as well. So all of these projects are available for you to take advantage, but also the community would love to get contributions and would love to get you involved on working and building these things together. Now, I want to quickly do a quick just a recap on the PnPjs, which is still one of the reusable components in this area. Really great reusable Fluent API wrapper for the REST, the SharePoint and Graph REST APIs. Now, let's talk about what is a PnPjs library. And PnPjs is really a Fluent API on top of the SharePoint REST and Graph APIs. So it basically encapsulates and makes it easy for you to access those REST endpoints with a Fluent API method, and it has the intelligence, so you can actually see what's available from an API perspective. So the different methods and properties and all of that. And that's slightly different than the existing SDKs, but hey, we're working on aligning those as well. It can be used within the SharePoint framework project. You can implement that on a Node.js on a server side, so you can use it in your JavaScript implementations as well. And it really makes it easy to hit those SharePoint REST API endpoints for accessing them, the properties and methods without memorizing and without going to the documentation on trying to memorize the right REST URLs. So more easier way for you to be more productive when you are implementing capabilities towards SharePoint or a subset of Graph endpoints at this point. A lot of different capabilities available on a SharePoint side, so there's a massive amount of different endpoints and REST APIs being covered. Let's have a look on this one in practice from a demo perspective, and you can really kind of target it. Well, you can first of all, you are kind of installing the PnP SB PnP graph in this case, and then we do the import in the implementation, so we get them into a use. Now you can target which of the presets are being used. In this case, we're actually taking everything in use, and that would actually reduce the size of your bundle. So you can actually do a really targeted set of capabilities which are getting included. Now, the next thing is to initialize the SharePoint endpoint or the graph endpoint, and then we do cool stuff like, hey, let's get the web. And it's really easy. You do the sb.web. Let's get the lists. sb.web.list. Super easy thing to do as well. Or get the site users. So again, you don't need to remember the actual REST endpoint because you can easily access the information and APIs just by using this fluent API methodology, which is really cool. Also adding, so the CRUD operations to create, read, update, and delete operations are included, makes your implementation really easy. And you can use it for the subset of Graph APIs as well. Not really intended to compete with the Graph SDK, but the community has been contributing on this side as well. So, and there's a constant evolution in here. So, and there's new capabilities being available every single week almost with every single release what is getting out. So please do give us feedback. Do give us input on what is actually needed, and that then we'll introduce that one in the project as well. On this journey of everything, we talked about a lot of the technology and a lot about the development, SDKs and components and APIs and all of that. But the PnP initiative actually slightly larger than that. So we also have a community docs initiative run by our MVPs under the same PnP umbrella, where we want to offer an opportunity for non-developers to contribute in the documentation. So we do have a specific location in the Microsoft 365 documentation where you can actually help other people by sharing your learnings, by sharing your best practices, and also contributing on other people's articles in this location. So please take a look on the AKMS M365 community docs, and more articles are available and are more than welcome in that location as well. Now, we talked about the AKMS M365 PnP address already, and we covered some of the reusable components. And I wanted to just be super clear that these components are not designed to compete with any of the native first-party SDKs. So we're obviously surfacing the first-party SDKs and tooling and guidance in the AKMS M365 PnP side as well, because those are the primary guidances and documentation, which I certainly want to have a look. You definitely want to use the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, which is an awesome set of components where suitable to get access on the Microsoft Graph without, again, hitting the Microsoft Graph API, rather using a web components and using the reusable controls within your solutions. But again, everything is referenced in the AKMS M365 PnP, trying to make it as easy as possible for you to find what's relevant for you related on in Microsoft 365 development. And the final section, what we talk about the learn, reuse, and share is really the share section. So for being active on the community, consuming and learning, building stuff in the community, or consuming the components and SDKs in your solutions, you might want to actually contribute back as well. And the contribution doesn't have to be huge. It might be a typo in a documentation, or it can be actually reusable control as part of the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, or as part of the other controls or SDKs what we have available. So we wanted to call out all of the people who've been contributing from a community side across the Microsoft 365 PnP community within 2020. And this is already a massive list of community contributors. So we're above 350 when this video was recorded. And this is always the hard part because it depends on when you're watching the video. I think we will easily hit the 500 contributors and community members and when we are hitting the end of the year from a 365-day perspective. So thank you, everybody who've been involved in this. We also have active members of those people who contributed and the active company members. So we have a permission to show these logos from those people who have contributed, and they are companies who are allowing their employees to actually being active in the open source initiatives and being able to contribute on these efforts. So thank you for all of these companies as well. And just to recap, this community would not exist unless we actually help each other, and it wouldn't exist only as a Microsoft contributing. It really exists because the rest of the community, the MVPs and non-MVPs, really want to get involved, and they want to contribute, they want to help other people to succeed as well, which is super important. So thank you everybody for this one. You absolutely are absolutely awesome. Now, if you're wondering, how would I get involved? Who are the people who I should be reaching out? You can always go to the GitHub repos and GitHub location. But if you feel more comfortable, you can absolutely reach out for any of our PnP team members. And PnP team members is basically an acknowledgement of being a Microsoft employee or as an MVP who've been active in the community, and then they're leading individual projects within our PnP initiative. So basically, they're people who are aware how do we work, and they have access on all of the other people in the team as well. And they typically run a project, one of those projects which we mentioned as part of the open source initiatives before, within the previous slides. So right now we are having, I need to even calculate, 30 people who are in this cross-organizational team where we have Microsoft employees and also the MVPs, and we're definitely looking into extending this team as well. So if you're wondering or interested in getting more closely involved in the open source and community efforts, and maybe leading an effort after a while, that's more than welcome. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get involved. Now, before closing up, just to recap, the one address to remember if you're looking into getting involved in the community side, it is AKMS M365, so Microsoft 365 patterns and practices. We do welcome everybody across the world, regardless of your age or gender or any other attribute, to be involved in here. It's a safe place to contribute and also learn how to contribute in an open source and in the community world. That's pretty much what we wanted to do today. So once again, learn, reuse, share the Microsoft 365 patterns and practices, AKMS Microsoft M365 PnP is the address. But thank you for watching the video. Hopefully you will be active or soon active, unless you are already soon active in the community. And please reach out if you have any questions, reach out to the PnP team members. They will help you to get involved more efficiently in the future. Thank you.